All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us for another TMC optimization session. And for those that are new, the Moonshot Collective is all about high achievers helping each other grow and develop and do their best work in the world. And we're here today to talk about different ways that we do things the best that we possibly can. And Jason Hines, our founding member and co-host, is going to take over from here and introduce our featured guest, Jarryd Wallace. Jason, I'll let you take it from here, please.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I appreciate everybody jumping in. And I see a lot of faces of friends of mine who have jumped in for the conversation. So really appreciate it. Before we get started, I want to go around the horn and just be able to do just an intro, and everyone just give a little bit about, who you are and how you're connected and why you're here. So I'll start out first. Obviously, Jason Hines, as everyone knows, with the Moonshot Collective for a little bit over a year now. And I wanted to get into this conversation today because Jarryd and I have shared a special friendship, and I've gotten to know a lot about his story, and I feel like it's something that's super important for everyone to be a part of. So I will pass it over to Mark Lowy.
My name is Mark Lowy. I've been good friends with Jason for over 20 years, back from the pro skating industry. I own a company called Action Park Alliance. We have 4 skate parks, 5 opening up this January in California, where we run programming through public-private partnership with municipalities for kids. So we do daily supervision, insurance programs, camps, events, lessons. We're also the leader in adaptive skateboarding programs right now through our adaptive athletes and our wheelchair athletes. And our programs we operate for them have taken on a next level with offerings. So we actually started a nonprofit called Action Park Foundation to help raise money to supply these athletes with money now to get to things like Do Tour and other clinics and events throughout the nation. So it's definitely a passion project of ours, and so we're excited to be a part of this conversation and see where everything goes.
Awesome, very cool. Allie, tell everybody about you.
Hi, I'm an interior designer out of Waterloo, Ontario, which is near Toronto. And Toronto, that's how you're supposed to say it if you're a local, Toronto. And I've been in business since '96 and specialize in luxury home interiors.
Very cool. David Colteri.
That's me. Hi, everybody. My name is David Colteri. I am a professional cliff diver. I met Mr. Hines through our workings at Red Bull. He was our event manager at Possum Kingdom Lake, Texas for the USA Cliff Diving Stop many a year. And I'm just down the road from Steph Z. We are in Los Angeles, California. I'm in Manhattan Beach. She's over in Playa del Rey. And yeah, stoked to be here for my first time. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to hear your story, Jarryd, and follow along. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Lee Huffman.
Hey everybody, I'm Lee Huffman. I live here in Nashville. Used to be Jason's neighbor, but he left us for Georgia. Yeah. I'm a freelance writer, a travel blogger, podcast host, and looking forward to learn more about Jarryd and hopefully have him on a podcast one day talking about Rome.
Awesome. Steph Z.
That's me. Man, where do I start? I worked with Hines in like 2005, I think it was, in the action sports world. Went on, dabbled in the fashion industry for a little bit, had some big success there. Was a morning show host on radio, have a podcast, working with Hines on another project, own a holiday decorating business. So it's crazy time for me for the next few weeks. I'm actually going to have to jump in like 10 minutes because I had it scheduled for the other time. But I've heard a lot about you, Jarryd, so I'm pretty stoked just to at least see your face, and hopefully I'll get the recording so I can watch it later on. Word.
Awesome. Matt Voltaline.
Hey guys, I've known Jason since 2010 in the Red Bull world, the world of Red Bull. We had a lot of successes together and went through a lot of interesting times together. My career is pretty varied, a lot in field marketing, a lot of sports marketing, experiential marketing, agency side, brand side, mostly in food and beverage. I'm always interested in hearing about stories like Jarryd. So let's bring it.
All right. Awesome. And then Kathy Kerrigan, let's wrap it up with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy in Indianapolis, and I work at a university, Indiana University, at the School of Philanthropy. So we actually study the nonprofit sector and the people who donate to nonprofits. And the one piece, I am not an athlete. The one piece that I can maybe tie together here is we look at maybe some of the reasons it's hard to give money to charities across borders. And so, to the extent that you have celebrities making these gifts to make the world a better place, and sometimes that becomes an intractable problem. So that's one of the things we research. So really looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Such a good group of people. I'm super excited everybody's here. So Jarryd, my man, I know we talk multiple times a day, many days. So let's just jump into it and try to keep this conversation as much highline as we can and not dig into our rabbit holes that we go to, but just kind of give a little story. So first and foremost, I want everybody to write something down, text it to yourself, just a couple of things that are prompts here. And I want you to write down the words rest, review, realign, reignite. We're going to come back to that in a little bit with this conversation and kind of reflect it back into Jarryd's journey. But just diving into it, I don't want to give away too much, but high school state champion, 9-time US champion, 3-time world champion, 4-time world record holder, 3-time Paralympian and Tokyo 2020 bronze medalist, founder and CEO of Rival Unleash Mobility. So Jarryd, welcome. That is your intro and it's pretty hella packed. But before we get into it, I want to dive into, let's talk about your early life, just how you found your way to track and field, your upbringing, your parents, the incredible story behind that, and basically how you got to us.
Totally, mate. No, thank you guys so much for being here. Sorry for the last minute switch in time. I know that affected probably everybody's schedule in some way, shape, or form. So thanks for your sacrifice in switching that and being able to make it here. And Allison, my mom is from North Bay, Ontario, Canada. So about 4 hours north of Toronto. So very somewhat familiar with that space. So fellow Canadian, if you are a Canadian. So I love that. Anyway, so I actually kind of joke with people when they ask me about my running background, and I always tell them that I ran before I walked. So mom was a Canadian national champion runner, All-American at the University of Georgia. Dad was a tennis player at the University of Georgia. Has been the head tennis coach there for 37 years now. He's pretty good at what he does from a coaching standpoint. Mom had a short professional career after college. And so when I was born, they were training for a marathon shortly after I was born. And so they pushed me for all of their training sessions in a baby jogger. And I've actually been in a marathon during, in a baby jogger as well. So running is just something that I was just born into. Probably second grade, I realized that not every family woke up at 6:30 on the weekends and went and did like local 5Ks and fun runs. That was just a weird thing that we did as a family. But that was just, again, that was the part. Family and running were just unified. I never really competed per se, or was like super competitive from the running side of things. It was just one of those things that, like, got home from school, mom went on a run, I went with her. It was just kind of like a family bonding thing more than anything. And then I got into high school, and I started taking a little bit more seriously. Dad being a tennis coach growing up, I was actually a competitive tennis player. I was top 100 in the country. That's what I thought I was going to do in college. That was kind of the direction I thought I was going to go. And then I got to high school, competed in track and field, and found that I was pretty good pretty quick. And junior year was top 20 in the country, and kind of laid down the tennis racket and pursued track and field full time. So that was kind of a quick brief of where running's come from, where it started, and I guess, where it took me through high school.
Awesome. So following high school, obviously, we've talked about it many times. You had just an absolutely incredible career. And then things, I don't want to say it took a turn for the worse, but you started on a journey that you never imagined would have been something that was yours. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so after my junior year of high school, I won 2 state titles, an 800 and a mile. I had, through my entire high school career, I had like kind of a chronic injury. I had stress fractures is basically what they kept telling me it was. I'd take 6 weeks off, I'd train for 3 months, they'd come back. I'd take 6 weeks off, I'd train for 3 months, they'd come back. And that was just the story of my high school career. After winning 2 state titles, I was getting college offers all over the place. Had committed to run at the University of Georgia to kind of follow my parents' footsteps. And I realized, like, if I'm injury prone, I just need to know that going into college so I can lower my expectations. But if I'm not, we need to figure out if there's something else going on. And we ultimately found out that what I had was called chronic exertional compartment syndrome. And compartment syndrome is basically a fancy term for saying you have pressure that is built up in your calf. It's not structural, it's muscular. So it's the sheath that surrounds the calf gets pressure built up, it cuts off nerve function and blood flow to your foot. And it can be dangerous in an acute case, but in a chronic case, it just kind of expands and you take time off and it goes away. So there was a way to get rid of it, and it was by having a surgery. It was a 6-week active recovery. So the athletes here, they hear 6-week active recovery, like, that's it, like, sign me up, like, let's go. And so that was basically what happened. I went in, I had that surgery done. Unfortunately, we had a pseudoaneurysm in the surgery. An artery was nicked. They sutured it up. It's a common thing in that surgery because it's a blind surgery. But unfortunately, when I went home with my bandages on, the suture came undone and I bled out into my leg for 3 days while I was recovering. Went to PT the next, 3 mornings later. They took off the bandages, leg was black and blue, sent me back to emergency surgery, where they basically, over an 18-day period, I had 7 surgeries where they debrided and removed 60% of the muscle from my knee down. They really weren't sure what my quality of life would look like at that point. But we were kind of just happy that, we made it out and nothing got crazy infected and that we were able to kind of keep me stable. Over that next 2.5 years, I had a total of 10 reconstructive surgeries, basically trying to save my leg. Obviously during that time, going through a really dark season of why me. 17 years old, my identity was in an athlete, was in being a runner, and I didn't really have I didn't have a plan B. Wasn't an A+ student. I was an athlete through and through, and that's what I was going to college for, and that's what people knew me as. And when I lost that, I felt like I lost everything. And so for that 2.5 year period, not only was I addicted to pain medication and constant pain and just trying to figure out what life looked like, supposed to be competing at a college level. And I found myself sleeping on the floor of my parents' room because I needed 24/7 monitored care for a season. It was definitely a life altering circumstance. But during that time, I, obviously grew a ton and it got me to a point where, I am today. But that season was by far one of the hardest seasons I ever went through. And it basically landed me in a doctor's office where I had probably one of the most profound conversations I've ever had in my entire life. And it was simple and in nature now, looking back in it. But in the time, it was pretty powerful. And the conversation went something like this. The doctor said, to me, he said, basically, Jarryd, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when you lose your leg, which was super sobering to hear at 20 years old. He said, you have an 8-year-old leg on a 20-year-old body. And that was just like earth shattering to kind of conceptualize and to kind of think through. But very quickly, he said, Jarryd, he said, I want you to do something for me. He said, let's take your leg, the reality that you have a very deformed leg, off the table for a second. What do you want your life to look like? And I was like, all right, well, take leg off the table. Like, I'd like to be pain-free. Obviously, that'd be nice. I'd like to be able to run again. One day if I have a kid, Lord willing, be able to play with him in the yard, like work a regular job, not have to sit down every 2 hours because I'm in excruciating pain. And he was just like, man, he's like, that's so cool. And I love that, but it's just not realistic with the leg that you've got. But he said, if you consider having your leg amputated, all those things could be true. And it took me a few years to realize what he had done in that moment. But looking back now, why that was so impactful for me is because for that 2.5 year period, and rightfully so in some way, shape, or form, I was allowing my present circumstances, the reality that I had a deformed leg, dictate the direction of my life, dictate my future hopes and dreams, dictate every decision that I was making, rather than choosing or looking at the places that I wanted to be and work backwards towards what I needed to do in the moment to help me get there. And in that moment, he changed my perspective. In that moment, he got me to dream again for the first time, and realize that amputation was not a tragedy. Amputation was not the end. Amputation was actually the beacon of hope that I had. And so I'm eternally grateful for the 2.5 years and 10 reconstructive surgeries and that process that I had to go through to get to a point where I could be in a position and hear that I should have my leg amputated and see it as an opportunity for hope rather than my life is ended.
It's awesome. It's awesome. One of the things that really was such a big lesson that you talked to me about was how you were able to, and he helped you to get there, to visualize, where do I want to be and how do I build it backwards, rather than what we do in our personal lives all the time. You know, outside of work, outside of everything else, we always build from where we are right now. What are the steps that I need to take in order to get there? So basically it was an exercise in visualization that worked out well. And, you know, following that up, you were looking to be pain-free. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this running thing is still on the table. So talk to me about the journey, where the journey goes from getting the amputation all the way up through Rio.
Totally. Yeah. So, you know, I leave that appointment knowing that I'm going to have my leg amputated, and I get to the computer at the hotel and I start Googling like life as an amputee and, you know, prosthetic technology. And then I come across videos of guys running on prosthetics. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like running is going to be an option. Like, this is sweet. I was a big wakeboarder before. I saw a dude doing flips on a wakeboard. I was like, okay, this is going to be awesome. Like, I'm going to be able to do all the things that I used to be able to do. And then I was like, you know what? Like, this dude got me dreaming again. Like, let's freaking keep dreaming. And so I Googled the Paralympic world record list for track and field. And I literally called my parents into the room like 3 hours after this conversation with this doctor. And I was like, my name's going to be on this list. And it's not why, obviously, I'm having my leg amputated, but if we're going to do this, we're going to go after something crazy. And so literally spend the next 4 months researching prosthetic companies and doctors, and, you know, literally finding a doctor who would cut off a 20-year-old's leg, you know, and some doctors looked at me and thought I was crazy. And finally found a doctor who was just like, yes, like 1000%, we have to do this. Went forward. They told me that it was 6 weeks was the absolute earliest that I could walk after the amputation. So it was 6 weeks in a day that I walked for the first time, pain-free in 4 years. It was 12 weeks that I ran on my first running prosthetic. And then it was exactly 1 year to the day where I ran in my first Paralympic race that I won. And it qualified me for our nationals. Went to that event, got third at nationals, made the team to go down to the Parapan Games in Guadalajara, Mexico in 2011. And it was 16 months after the amputation. I won the gold medal in the 100-meter dash down there, ran the fastest time in the world that year. And that really just launched my career. The next year I made the games to London. The following year I broke the world record 3 times, was a world champion in 2 events, and took me 3 years to achieve the world record goal, but was able to check that off the box, and was just, again, like, so, you know, blown away at the process. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned, you know, through those next few years as I looked back was, you know, yes, I was a great athlete before, but it wasn't the fact that I was just a superior, amazing athlete, strong-willed person, and that's why I'm achieving all these amazing things. But when I look back, I saw there was just a army of people that really created the opportunities and created, you know, at the very beginning, gave me the resources. Prosthetic technology is not cheap. I mean, it's $15,000 for a running blade. And people in the community came alongside. My parents were swamped in hospital bills, and they came alongside. I'm like, here we go. Like, we got you. Like, let's do this thing. Prosthetic companies just like, we got you. Let's do this thing. We believe in your dreams. We believe in your goals. And what that taught me now is, like, if you have a goal and you have a dream and you're so convicted by it and you are so clear in how you communicate and what you want to do, people are going to join you. People are going to come alongside. So, like, don't be afraid to express your goals. Don't be afraid to express those dreams. Don't be afraid to communicate those early and often, because people will come along and help champion that. And then the other thing is you just, no one achieves great things on their own. it just doesn't happen. And if you meet someone who says that, you probably aren't going to hang out with them very long, because they're probably a little bit on the egotistical side. And the reality is, and I know everybody on this call has had that experience, because you guys don't end up on this call for no reason. You guys are all very successful in your own realm. So, I think that was one of the greatest lessons. And then I think the last thing that I learned during that season is it's okay to ask for help. I was a little kind of prideful early on in my kind of life, and always felt like it was a burden to ask people for help. But it's okay to ask for help, and actually it's a position of humility and a position of strength, even at times, when you ask for help in the right way, of course.
I think as you're going through this journey, you're starting to define what your process is of how you work things, how you really align yourself with the right team and figure out those different things. And a lot of times also shifting goals, shifting gears and everything, because, with Rio, you're going into that being the top ranked runner in the world. Like you are the one who's laying down the best times. And all it takes is just a little bit of illness to sideline, something that you've been going after for 4 years. So tell us about what happened there and how you kind of reset and focused on 2020 in Tokyo.
Yeah, totally. So got down to Rio that year before, in 2015, I broke the world record in the 100. I hadn't lost a race in 18 months. I was running consistently 10.7, 10.6 in the 100, which was about 0.4 seconds faster than anybody else in the world. And was just a shoe-in for gold, basically. Got down to Rio, got a respiratory infection while I was down there. Couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, was just, I just didn't weather all the storms ultimately. It's part of competition at times. And ran, lost my first race in the prelims, got second, ended up getting sixth in the finals, ran half a second slower than I'd been running all year, and just unfortunately didn't have what it took. And that was a really defining moment in my career, because up to that point, all of my dreams and my goals were set around, and all of my, going back to kind of my identity that I had before, was just rooted in a performance. So I had like all of my eggs in like what I did. And so I was defined by success. I was defined by a medal. I was defined by a standard. I was defined by performance. And I realized that just wasn't sustainable. And I almost gave up running after Rio because of that. And what happened in that moment is I basically realized if I wanted to continue to do this, that the running was going to have to be bigger than me. And that I was going to have to really define my why, because I just didn't have a clearly defined why. And I was so tightly holding on to, again, this performance and expectations and pressure that I was putting on myself and all of those standards, to try to satisfy something that really is just kind of irrelevant. And at the end of the day, like when you put all of your eggs in something that you have zero control over, in a 10-second race that happens every 4 years, that's a huge risk. I realized that just wasn't the best play. And so coming out of Rio, I really redefined what my why was, and dialed that in and began to operate out of that. And for me, it was three simple things: faith, family, and the legacy. And I realized that I'd been brought into this world for a reason, and everything happened to me for a specific reason. And I needed to be willing to, be flexible and operate out of what that why was, and continue to use the position, the giftedness, and the experience that I have to leverage and create not only opportunities for myself, but for those around me. And so that's what kept me moving. Through 2017 into 2021, obviously because of the postponement, that having that why is what really allowed me to make it, all the way through, especially when the pandemic happened.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's something when we talk about it that we all look at the pandemic as there's so many different things that we're just shifting, and on the fly we've got to change things and really figure out what we're going to do. From y'all's standpoint, you're working on a 4-year plan every 4 years. It's stacked with all of these different things. And for your 4-year plan, it comes down to where you really are focused on what does that 10 seconds look like, and how do I build back for that 10 seconds to be able to prepare with all of the training and everything. But while you were doing that and you found that new purpose and everything, I think something that kept you uplifted during that time when you all had the you basically had the delay for a year before you could actually go. One of the things that really was cool about it was the Affordable Blade Project. And we talked about that kind of coinciding with everything going into Tokyo. And I remember the first day that we met, when we all met for lunch that day, and Austin Gore introduced us and basically said, you told me, you're like, just like Formula One cars are able to, those teams, the research, everything that they do, they're able to find resources and solve problems for common automobile manufacturers. I want to do that for people with prosthetics through my work, through my research and everything. So that's kind of what carried you through that. Talk to us a little bit about how that really started to ramp up, especially going into this past summer.
Yeah, totally. So kind of the evolution, to go back a little bit and kind of create the process that got me to that point. Obviously the experience I shared on the front end of when I lost my leg and the team of people that came around me and supplied those resources, I was very fortunate to kind of have that. So shortly after London, I started a nonprofit organization. I wanted to, raise money and find ways to be that story for someone else. And what I realized is, my highest best use is not fundraising. And it was a great idea and a great concept, but execution was a little bit poor. Didn't have the right team ultimately to make that happen. So a few years later, I dissolved that and began working for a prosthetic company locally. What I did is I would go to a patient who was about to have their leg amputated. I would walk them through their amputation process all the way to the point where they got their prosthetic. And, I was just recycle a patient. Sometimes I would even go into the surgery and help the doctor decide the limb length based on the technology that we were going to implement onto the person. So I really got to learn the industry. I really got to empathize with the individual and understand the process through a different lens. Obviously, I experienced it personally, but get to see it, through a different lens. From there, I went and worked with an engineer in Japan for the last 4 years, designing and developing the running prosthetics that I use, the elite of the elite, the Formula One vehicle, as Jason kind of said, of our industry. And I learned really a lot about the technology itself. And basically coming out of that, I kind of saw two things. There's no access or opportunity for access because cost is so expensive. In the prosthetic industry, insurance regulates cost, but they regularly cover it. A running prosthetic is not medically necessary for just quality of care. And so they'll cover your everyday device, but anything beyond that, they won't cover. Therefore, you basically need to have $7,200 to pay for just the blade itself, or you can go and apply for a grant, and nonprofit organizations are a huge way that people access this technology. So the access and the path to access was a huge issue. And then obviously costs can be adjusted from a few different ways. So what we basically started was a company that attacked it from two different angles. One was the manufacturing process. How can we kind of innovate this process to allow it to be more cost effective, streamline it, et cetera. And then B was, instead of dealing with the 100-year-old process of accessing technology, why don't we just develop a direct consumer business model and create a way for the consumers to access this, where we can control, obviously how much we share or how much we sell these products at, and not worry about people, changing the cost regardless of what our costs are. And so what we've done is we've developed what we call the affordable blade, as well as a customized adapter. So no longer will the individual need a secondary socket, which is another $7,000 to $8,000. So the total running leg is about $15,000, and we're going to be able to give the individual the foot and that universal adapter for $1,500. So we are just super, super stoked to completely change the industry as a whole, the way the industry operates, the way that people access this technology. And really, my hope is that we can change the way that it's communicated and the narrative around it. Because right now, like when I was in Tokyo and I'm racing, and there's a kid at home, let's say, watching me on the television who's 7 or 8 years old and has an amputation and wears a prosthesis and is like, man, I really want to run. But then he tries to Google and find how much you are, and it says $7,000 to $10,000 online. And he was like, well, I'm just not gonna be able to afford that. There's just no way. And so it's so hard because right now in the media, the only people that have them are the elite athletes. And so the story is, if you're an elite athlete, then you can have it. If not, then you don't really need it, unless you're maybe like one of the lucky few who get a grant, right? So the messaging is just not inclusive. And it's basically like you're either here or there's nothing. And what we want to do is we want to normalize it. We want to normalize access. Every single person should be able to control the agency of activity that they have in their lives. I see an 8-year-old boy who goes to school every day, and when recess time comes, he goes and sits on a wooden bench and watches his friends run and play, when he could simply unscrew 2 screws, slide our adapter on, throw 2 screws on, and in 60 seconds be playing with his friends for his 30-minute recess break. There's no reason that can't happen. We are too advanced as a society to not be able to create those resources, that education model, and the devices to do that. So I finally got to a point in my life where I realized that we find ourselves sometimes complaining about the reality of where we're at, and that we see a problem, and at some point we have to stop complaining about it and just fix it. And I got tired of complaining about the issue for a decade, and I've decided I'm gonna fix it on my own here. And by on my own, obviously, I mean a bajillion people who are helping make this happen. But I definitely have a vision and a passion and a desire to change it, and I'm grateful for the team that we've got doing that.
My internet dropped out. Did you talk about the brewery? And if not, let me tee that up because I think it's super important to really look at, you can be as focused as you want to be as you possibly can be on a vision and making a dream become a reality. And with the Affordable Blade project, which now transitioned into Rival, when I first met Jarryd, it was still super ambitious, but it was still in that kind of TED Talk phase rather than getting everything together. And there was one holdup that was in there, which was one of the key components to it. And it was a matter of really just looking at it. How do we realign what that relationship looks like and what that role looks like, and then be able to move forward. So talk about the brewery.
So basically, we're starting a brewery. No, I'm just kidding. So David's like, that took a weird turn. I didn't see that coming. So basically, I was working with this engineer in Japan, and he had all the skills, I had all the vision. And at some point, if you run into a person that has skills, sometimes skills can only take you so far. If they're not willing to buy into the vision, if they're not willing to take the risk, then skills are kind of pointless. And so that was where I was kind of running into, and I was relying so much on Ken and his skill set to allow me to kind of create this business and this model. And I'm sitting in Creature Comfort with Jason and Ravi, and it's the second time that we had met ever. And I'm just talking to him, and I'm just frustrated, and I'm so passionate. It's so clear what needs to happen, and I'm just so frustrated that Ken's kind of dragging his feet. He's not really interested in doing this, and if the little interest he has, he wants to do it his way, and all this whole deal. And Jason and Ravi basically just look at me, and they're just in their own ways. They're basically like, dude, this is what you were created to do. Like, this is your purpose. Like, this is your why. The faith, family, legacy. This is the legacy part of your why. And you need to freaking just do this thing. You don't need Ken. And I was at a point where I literally was about to, and I even said this to me, I'm like, guys, like I've got so many other things I got to focus on. This was pre-Tokyo. I'm still training for the games. And I'm so stressed. I'm like, why can't we move forward with this? This is the perfect time. This is the perfect opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And he was the holdup. And they basically were just like, dude, you don't need him. There are other engineers. There are other people. This is what you were made to do. Freaking do it. And one of the things that was so powerful for me, and the things that I took away, and maybe a nugget that you guys can kind of have in this from that meeting, was most of the time when I need like really solid sound advice, I go to like my comfort people. I go to like the people that I've got like the longest relationship with. Very rarely do you expect it to come from a new relationship, and or do you seek it out. But Ravi and Jason were so convicted, and both in their unique giftedness were confident enough to tell a stranger, kind of still, like, nah, dude, like, you need to do this freaking thing. Like, this is what needs to happen. And there was this level of conviction and trust and passion that they had in their voice. And we've only talked twice. So there, for me, there's still so much you don't know about it, and there's so other things, but it was just so clear for them. And for me, that was such a powerful lesson, because it's important who you surround yourself with, but you don't you don't always have to have the closest person will be that one source of information. And sometimes like in this example, like my wife, like she kind of felt that, but she didn't know how to communicate it. We're just too close, right? Sometimes to have that real, raw, honest conversation. And it took a little bit of an outside perspective to just say, this is what you need to freaking do, and go do it for it to happen. So that was literally, that meeting is what launched Rival, and what launched us into where Friday, I'm going to pick up the carbon fiber prototype of this guy and going to run on the first ever 3D printed running prosthetic in the history of prosthetic technology. So
awesome.
Super stoked about it.
For the record, it wasn't a meeting. We just went and we ordered in Chinese food and drank beers at a brewery and got a little bit too saucy. And we're like, no, go. It's like full bro, you were meant to do this. And the next thing we know, it got launched, it was really cool, because that was a good lesson for all of us to take away, which is, we got to seek those people that have a different opinion and figure out why. So now, first of all, I don't know if you've showed or not, got to show off the medal. You got to.
For this whole thing.
So you definitely gotta put that up there. So achieving the bronze, getting after it. I remember watching it live, everything, and it was just so cool how the whole community was wrapped up into you getting to that point. But it was also cool how the community actually knew about Rival, and the message had already started getting shared. There was interviews that were doing it. There were all different little touch points about like, hey, this is going to change the way that we look at mobility for people with amputees. It's going to start off with being able to help people to run, but there's things we can do to help kids to be able to grow into it, exchange out different sizes, people that work in heavy duty jobs where they're doing a lot of manual labor, and this could help even to from, you've already spoken about it from a woman's standpoint. Like, why can't we make one that is actually fit for wearing high heels and being able to do all the things that we like to do, like really changing that mobility. So super excited that, this is all working out. And then obviously we got a chance to meet and cross paths and be able to do that, but also excited. The one thing that drew me to you was definitely your process and the way that you did things, and kind of how you really did take that circular route to it. Like, I talked about it, that in the beginning, everybody, let's write down the words: rest, review, realign, reignite. It truly was something that you had to almost like just stop, like, okay, let me stop the thoughts and stop trying to move forward, because it doesn't make sense to keep trying to do the same thing to be able to get past it when you were going through the throes of after. And all right, and that doctor helped you to get to that point, and then he helped you to really review, like, let's take inventory and figure out what's really important to me and what are the best ways for me to be able to move forward in my life with this injury. He was able to help you to, after you came out of it, now let me realign. I'm pain free. I feel like I'm here for something else that's a little bit more. And I feel like I still got, the old man still got a little bit of running left in him, and be able to figure out, from those different pieces. So being able to realign where you had to go, and then have to go through the same scenario once you got to Rio and things happen. I mean, shoot, it was a, slight infection took away where that dream was headed, but then being able to do the whole process again, and then finally just reignite that fire. And I feel like that fire was reignited right after Rio, when you're ready to go. And also the Affordable Blade project was going, and, you just needed to find those different pieces along the way. So kind of like went through that circular, let's call it the development process as you were going. You went through the whole thing. And a lot of times we think of it as like, okay, it's all a circle with a peak and then a low. but it's really, if we look at it as a piece of paper on the table, it's circular, but it works like a spiral. And then sometimes we're going up, sometimes we're spiraling down, but as long as we keep it in motion, we get that figured out. That reignition sequence there, as long as we have everything lined up, we're using the process that I made him take the Colby yesterday. So we're going to go through that and really take a look at it, because his process is very interesting to look at. And for those that are not within the Moonshot Collective, the Colby is just, it's an assessment that talks about what your instinctual process is of how you take action and how you get through problems and how you really work it out. And from Jarryd's standpoint, just looking at it, it was crystal clear. He took it, he sent me the results, and he was like, so that explains a lot and reaffirms a lot. And I was like, absolutely, this is you. You know, it totally explains everything there. So I think it's a very valuable lesson on making sure that we go through those steps and make sure that we take the time to slow down, to rest. Let's review it. Let's make sure we realign it, like move things around. It doesn't always have to be successful the first go around, but as long as we're constantly using it, and then once we get it and we feel right, reignite. We'll pick up the right people, the right resources, the right everything along the way, as long as we're hungry and we're staying focused on where we're going and we're chasing after that and using our process for it. So,
yeah, I want to add on to that too, because I think one of the things that I'm so fortunate in the career that I've been able to have, not from a success standpoint, but simply from a process standpoint, because literally my job is, when I left London, was I want to go to Rio. Here's where I want to be in 4 years. Here's the goals that I want to achieve at that point of time. Here's what I do in 2015. Here's what I do in 2014. Here's what I do in 2013. Here's what I do tomorrow. And so my whole entire career has been built around creating a dream or a goal that is 4 years out and developing a process of stepping stones and checkpoints to get to that goal. And I've always kind of been of the mindset that a great goal is one that's 60% achievable. Anything higher than that, you should put on the to-do list. Anything lower than that, maybe hang on for a little bit. But the idea behind it is that regardless of if you fully get to that goal or not, as you take those steps, you're going to be a heck of a lot further along the road than you were when you started. And then B, a goal is that 30,000 foot, like big picture. This is where we're going. This is where we're going to be. But if you sit there and you focus on that the entire time, you're going to get freaking beat up. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to be discouraged as crap, because if it's a good goal, it's a pretty good ways out in the distance. And it's really important to work all the way back from that goal to tomorrow, and slowly set those action steps and those checkpoints so you can get that positive affirmation, that feedback, and then even sometimes make some pivots to help you get closer and closer to that goal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It totally makes sense. It's kind of like that old saying, plan your work, then work your plan. Don't just jump ahead and, like, here's what I want to be. Let's get lost in trying to be able to get that. It's kind of like, count backwards, plan what the work has to be.
And one of the things that Colby showed me was just that, I got that I'm a 5.573. And one of the things that I loved about it is, regardless of where you are, you could be a 1.199. There's no high and low score. It's just literally this is how to best work with who you are. This is your giftedness. This is how you operate. There's no highs and lows. This is the best way to use your highest, best use. And when that perspective came in, because every time I take one of these tests, I was like, oh, well, that's really low. I just suck at that. And it's like, no, it's not that you suck at it. It's just that's not where you go. So you need to understand that based on that, this is how you best operate. And that this Colby did a beautiful job of clarifying that and giving a lot of content and context to that perspective.
Awesome. I'm going to pass it to Perry right now to actually walk us through and decipher what this tells us about, from the Colby score. And for those on the phone or on Zoom who are not with the Moonshot Collective, have not done this before, I think it'll be very enlightening to see what it says.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And Jarryd, for sharing your story. There's just so much in there that's compelling, and yeah, I just really appreciate being able to be part of this today. Jason, as you were explaining, and Jarryd, you as well, the Kolbe Index is this incredible tool because it helps us understand the instinctive and intuitive way we respond to things. And Jarryd, you made, I think, possibly the most important point of all, which is that it is not about being good or bad, high or low score, but actually the way you respond. So if you have a number that corresponds with a high number, if you strive towards, is the language that Kolbe uses, in a particular area, which I'll go through right now, then that's the way you intuitively work towards it. But at the same time, it's either you strive towards it or you're resistant towards it. And when you're resistant towards it, just means you have to take a different approach. But let's be specific instead of vague here. So the four categories, or the four modalities, we call them, are as defined by Kolbe, are fact finding, which is how you gather and share information; follow through, which is how you organize and systematize things; quick start, which is how you deal with risk and uncertainty; and implementer, which effectively means how you deal with sort of hands-on and building and that kind of stuff. So Jason, you have yours up on the screen here. So should we do
Jarryd's, actually?
I've got you for some reason.
That's you, mate.
Yeah. So you want to swap it out for Jarryd?
I don't even know why mine is up there because we didn't look at it yesterday, but
Okay.
Let me, that's crazy. On my screen, it was Jarryd. So my apologies, everybody. Give me 1 second.
You can also put up your address and phone number too, if you want.
I think everyone here already has that. I mean, who are we talking to? Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, mine's not too exciting. So, all right, should be able to.
So, Jarryd, you're right in the order of the index itself, 5573. One of the things that we like to do is kind of reorient this or reorder this so that you understand how you actually lead. So 5573, meaning you're 5 in the way that you gather and share information out of 10, 5 on how you organize, systemize things, 7 on how you deal with risk and uncertainty, and 3 in sort of that hands-on, build it yourself kind of thing. But let me talk about the different ends of the scale first. So in regards to dealing with information, gathering and sharing information, fact finding, a low number means that you're going to need to simplify. You just need to get the overview. Give me the essential facts and that's it. If you give me too much information, my eyes will sort of glaze over and I'll get distracted or bored. A high number would mean give me all the details. I can't get enough information. You can never give me enough information. Jason's high on that, as we saw a minute ago. You're right smack in the middle. And what that means is that you need the essential facts. So not just the overview, you actually need some detail, but not so much that you start to get paralyzed. The way you deal with systems and organizing things is that you maintain, and using the Kolbe language, this is really about being able to detect discrepancies, being able to adjust procedures. So for example, a lower number would indicate that you're going to adapt, you're going to look for shortcuts when it comes to organizing the information that you're getting. A high number would mean you'd create a whole new system for it, one of your own, because the systems aren't good enough. Right in the middle means that you maintain, you look for what's working and you stick with it. It's the real sort of the best way for me to think about this, and what really resonates for me here is that, as I said, you can detect discrepancies. Because you can tell whether a system is going to work or not, doesn't mean you're going to want to rebuild the whole thing. It means you're going to figure out what's not working and focus on fixing that. The 7 in quick start, or risk and uncertainty, a low number means that you look for stability, whereas a high number means you jump in with both feet. You experiment to see what will happen. Again, using Kathy Kolbe's language, you innovate. So as a 7, you're in that high ranking number where you're going to try things out first. And then in the implementer side, hands-on, generally speaking, on a low number, it means you'll envision how things could be versus you have to build it before you can see it. So these numbers, this 5573, means that you're going to lead with experimentation. You're going to naturally, instinctively jump in and just get the experience first. And through that experience, you will gather and share the information you need and organize it and figure out what to do with it. And then last but not least, that sets you up to be able to envision what the big picture can be. So again, following your own intuitive process, the way that Colby points it out, we can predict that this is the way you're going to do things. You're going to try them out first, maybe put yourself in that situation so you have that experience to draw on, gather and share the information you need. I'm just sort of repeating myself here, but it's a very specific process, and it's different than, say, Jason, who's going to lead with fact finding. So when you guys get together, Jason will be, give me all the information you got. He'll keep asking questions. He'll interview you as long as you're willing to go along with it, because he's got this huge capacity for information before he decides what action he's going to take. You like to take action first, and then from that experience, decide what you're going to do, how you're going to categorize it, and then what the big picture can be. Does that sound right?
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
It's a good conversation.
It's
Right.
fun. It's actually really fun. And I don't know, it's just kind of speculation here, but it's really fun. I feel like one of the reasons, after seeing Jason's numbers, I feel like we work really well together, because I am kind of quick to move and he's quick to information. So we kind of balance each other out a little bit in that regard. But it's kind of cool.
It's a really powerful team building tool for that exact reason. And the way we use it in TMC is to help each other, not just to understand our own process for ourselves, but to be able to help each other develop and achieve, because we can support each other in that way. So what you described is exactly that. I've found over the course of my career, I've been using Colby for 25 years, and I found that the best part of it, aside from learning a bit about myself, some of which, or a lot of which I sort of intuitively knew anyway, was that now I can explain to people how I work. So like you, I'm a quick start. I'm a 9 in quick start. So I'm all about like jump in first and then see what happens, which is why I'm not a professional athlete, because I always end up hurting myself and then not being able to continue with it because I jumped first. I'm not the measure twice and cut once, as Ravi likes to say. But anyway, but what's so great about it, as I was saying, is that then I can explain that to other people and say, if we're going to work together, this is how I'm going to be able to engage, and this is how I can give you the best results. And if you don't do that, and this is again is why it's so powerful, is that it leaves it up to them to try to understand, and their own ideas or expectations or their own filters. So within our own Moonshot Collective, the mastermind group, that network that we run here, we all know this about each other, and we can say, oh, okay, right. You need to take action right now. And if I just keep asking you questions, I'm going to drive you crazy. So why don't you go off and do that and then come back or you're going to jump in and not ask the right questions. Let me get on board with you and help you figure that out. So, you don't make a mess of things.
Yeah, definitely. So for the friends who are outside of the group, this is just, it's not some sort of MLM thing that we're doing or whatever. I should have explained that first. This is just a tool that's available on the internet that you can just go in, take the test and everything. But we just found it was like the best way for us to be able to, Perry with lots of years of experience, to understand how each other's process works, and to really help to incorporate that not only into work and what we have to do as careers, but just in our daily lives and our relationships that we have with people, and making sure that, we understand how other people work, but also we know how to professionally align ourselves with the right people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But outside of that, Jarryd, thank you so much, everyone. Any questions, comments, anything? Like, let's dive in. Let's pick this man's brain a little bit.
I'll start if no one else wants to. Jarryd, I really appreciate some of the stuff you shared off the top in terms of, well, you actually elaborated on this already. You shared with us this idea of faith, family, and legacy. You talked about the importance of having outside perspective and feedback, which is something, you know, again, why we do the group the way we do. And you talked a lot about the process that allows you to work back from your goal. And I'm a huge proponent of working backwards and creating those milestones. All of that was really, really great to hear you talk about. And so I'm kind of curious, at what point did you start to realize that what you're doing is so much more than the performance aspect of it? That not just as a role model, but as someone who is creating accessibility for other people, that that this work is as important as the performance itself. When did that sort of come to light for you and you take that on?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. It evolved, you know, shortly after 2016. I realized that, you know, something had to change. I didn't really know how to explain it, you know, in a way that I do now, but I just felt like I can't keep going and putting all of my, you know, eggs in this basket. Something has to change. What is that going to look like? And again, I think what's my unique gift in this? What am I passionate about? What do I want to be remembered for? How can I use my position and giftedness to impact and influence other people? And again, I think I said this earlier, like I got so frustrated at the reality of the situation. I got so tired of complaining about the fact that people couldn't access technology. I got so tired of complaining about the fact that this stuff isn't readily available, and not every single person who is an amputee that would like to run can access that. And I just realized that, you know, I need to do something about it. And I think it probably somewhere around like 2018, 2019, I realized, like, while I was having conversations with Ken and while I was kind of seeing the development of how we were designing it and understanding the cost side of things from a manufacturing standpoint, and then knowing how much they were selling it for, just kind of like, this is not a hard problem to solve. You know, like there's some gaps that need to be filled in, but like, why isn't this happening? And why isn't someone doing this? Like, what is, you know, am I completely missing something? And part of it for me was like, you know, I don't have this like crazy business degree. I'm not a business owner. I'm, you know, entrepreneurial minded and spirited, but, you know, just don't have a ton of experience in that because I'm pursuing my own career right now. And finally I was just like, I had so many conversations with so many people, and I talked to so many people about this vision. And no one was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. There's no way that's going to work. You know, there's no way it's going to, you know, and then we build a business model out of it, and we develop a pro forma. And, you know, there's 1.4 million lower limb amputees in the United States of America.
Wow.
Just in the US.
Wow.
800,000 of those are between the ages of 18 and 60. Yeah. Like there's a population size here for this, you know, like there's you know, in our projections, we literally are looking at 5%, looking at 40,000 people as our like target market. And in the first year, we want to sell 500 blades, which is like really small. And if we do that, we'll be profitable in like 18 months.
Amazing.
And so it's like, this works. Not only does the business work, but it literally, we're getting it to the consumer for like 5 times cheaper than what they're able to get it for right now. 10 times if you add the socket, right? And so I think it was a process of at some point I got frustrated enough that it wasn't happening. I needed to do something about it. And then I realized, like, for me, and maybe, you know, Perry, it might be the fact that I kind of had gotten to the point in my career where I achieved most of my goals that I had set. And it was like, I have new goals now. And that could very well be part of why it just shifted when it did, where I started putting a lot of time and energy in focusing towards this. It may be that I'm, in 3 years, I'm retiring from track and field. And so I'm kind of building that
Right.
next foundation. So it could be a timing thing, but I really think that the process started right after 2012 when I started the nonprofit organization. It's just developed into a affordable running blade project now, and a business that's going to give access to this product for individuals. So I don't think I like it. I don't know if that really fully answers your question, but I really do think that it started in 2012. It just took a bunch of iterations of experience and knowledge and gaining information on the need that was truly there, the real problem that needed to be solved. And in some ways, like, it's industry changing. Like no one's doing this. I don't know why. It goes against the normal flow of the industry, which is you go to a prosthetic company, you apply for a blade, they insurance submits, and they either approve part of it or deny it. You go and get a grant, you pay for it, you get it. That's just how the industry works. And we're coming in there and we're like, nah, let's do it different. Warby Parker did that with glasses, 10 years ago, whatever, but similar model. And so, I think it's just evolved over time into what it's become today.
Can I ask you something else related to that? Because you said something that really struck me, which was agency of activity. And I can't get that out of my head. And it feels like throughout the story that you shared with us about your life and your achievements, that this is like a core tenet. And, whether it was about the foundation, the success or failure isn't actually not important. It's that, but, behind all of this, whether it's about running or whether it's about the prosthetics or whether it's about, there seems to be this thing about you as an individual who has this core belief about agency of activity, and that needs to be available. That's a right. And I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but this is what I feel like I'm hearing from you. And to me, it's like you have this superpower that's around that. And if it weren't running, you'd be applying that anyway.
I think you're right. And I think that to say what, like, to answer your question, to get the why behind what you're saying, and I'll pose it in a way of like asking all of you guys to kind of put yourself in my shoes. But I just signed to run track at the University of Georgia. I had goals, I had dreams. I knew what I thought my life was going to look like. And it got radically flipped on its head. Mm-hmm. And I lost the one thing that I loved more than anything, and that was running. And then by the grace of God, I got it back because I learned about prosthetic technology, and I made this radical decision to have my leg amputated. And I got given that gift of running back. Mm-hmm. And through the process of getting that thing back that I loved so much, I learned that not everybody had that opportunity.
Right.
And it wasn't even that everyone loves to run, but what if that person doesn't know they love to run because they've never been given that opportunity before?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I loved more than anything, I lost, and then I got it back. And then I realized the way that I got it back is inaccessible to like 99% of the population. Mm-hmm. That pisses me off. Honestly, it does. And like,
there it is.
Why is that the case? And I think that the conviction of that is so strong, and I just didn't know how to solve that problem. And so I've been spending a decade trying to do what made sense, starting a nonprofit, working for a prosthetic company, designing this stuff, like learning as much as I could, trying to figure out and to ultimately get to this point. And I still have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I have a clear passion. I've got really great people that I've surrounded myself with. I've got great advisors and a great team and amazing engineers, and we're going to crush the crap out of this thing. But I am the, for some reason my name's next to founder CEO, but I am the low man on the totem pole, that I'm just hopefully just pushing this team, and helping drive them in the right direction, because it has to happen. We have to create this. We have to build this bridge that exists between access and this technology.
Amazing.
Because it's going to change the world. It's going to change the world. It's going to change how people interact with each other. It's going to change their health. It's going to change how they view themselves. It's going to change the suicide rate in the disabled population. I mean, it's going to change so much simply by giving someone the ability and the agency to control their movement.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah.
David.
Go ahead, Mark. I'll follow you up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Jarryd, hearing your story is just absolutely phenomenal, and the perseverance to get to where you are. And now with my colleague Victor's on the call as well, it makes me start thinking about our, skateboarding adaptive athletes and our wheelchair athletes, like creating more of you're using your platform on that Olympic level, Paralympic level to let people know they have the opportunity to do it. I think, I was at the ice hockey rink last week, and one of my daughter's hockey teammates, has a prosthetic plug arm so she can hold a hockey stick. One of her brothers has, prosthetics as well. And we had an event a couple weeks ago at our facility. It was a memorial event for John Comer, who was the first ever adaptive, professional skateboarder, who passed away this last year. But we had all these athletes there, and I went to this kid in the hockey rink and I said, "Hey, you need to come to this. Like, this is," and he didn't really get it. He didn't get that it could be an opportunity for him to learn to skateboard, that's something he could do. And seeing your story and getting this product, out to the public, and really leveraging that and letting them know you can do it too, and it's affordable now, is phenomenal. It makes me think, getting with Oscar, who's one of our top, adaptive skateboard athletes, and this technology could be something that could be adapted to them to make their skateboard feel more natural than it does now with existing prosthetics. And Victor, do you have that picture? Can we share a picture? Is that all right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Vic, can you share that picture of this is our trophy. Is it 2 weeks ago was the event, I believe, right, Vic?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it real quick. I didn't think you'd put me on the spot like that.
What's up, Vic? I did when you first came on.
Check your text message, bro.
Yeah, I've been following along for sure. And Jarryd, you got an amazing story, man. It's super sick to hear all. But yeah, we did a really cool trophy. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
No, Mark, while he's looking for that
prosthetic leg
photo,
that we use as a trophy.
Oh, that's awesome. While he's looking for that photo, Mark, I told him, man, I love what you were saying, and one of our goals and hopes is, two things is I'm 31 years old. There's no reason I need to keep running. I've achieved all the things I wanted to, but I'd be an idiot to stop lose the platform that I've got as a professional athlete right now in the Paralympics. So I'm running through Paris solely because I want to continue to maintain that platform of influence and impact, to be able to push more opportunities, more education, more of these to the people that need them. And then second, to the audience that you have from a skateboarding adaptive standpoint, my vision for this company is starting with running blades because it fits, because it's sexy, because it's a need, because it works for me and my story. But my hope is that we can innovate into any and every industry, right? So if there's a skateboard foot, let's start having conversations and see what those needs are and figuring out how we can make those accessible and affordable. Because most of the time, and this may be the case for a lot of your skateboarders, they have to choose between everyday comfort and ability to skateboard. And more often than not, they're going to choose their skateboard leg, and they're going to just kind of get around for the most part in day-to-day functionality so that they can skateboard. And because you don't get 7 legs, you don't get 3 legs, you're so stuck into this individual one-leg deal unless you have this crazy insurance policy, which rarely anybody has. So our hope is to be able to continue to make many iterations of different needs and feet in the industry, and even beyond. If this process and model that we developed for prosthetic technology, why the heck can't it exist for wheelchairs? Wheelchairs are stupid expensive, and they're 100% customized. And why can't we find a way to, again, say we don't need insurance to approve this? HSAs, we get to receive HSAs for all this. So let's completely shift the model of education. Let's tell people, instead of relying on insurance, let's prepare to develop an HSA to provide some extra boosted costs for this. You save 25-30% on the cost of the product because the HSA is paying for it, and now you're getting it for $1,200 instead of $1,500, right? You know, so there's so many other things, and all that comes back to is information and education, and there's none of that out there, which is another passion of ours. Is very quickly we want to implement education as a part of our model so that people can be aware of things that are out there, so they can know that they can change their own device, that they can get custom fitted for a wheelchair at a cost-effective way without waiting for, you know, months for insurance to maybe say yes. So, man, we got to stay connected for sure.
Yeah, like seeing.
I'll get you guys. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
But just seeing, it is for Vic and myself. It is a big passion project, because seeing these athletes, like what they have to go through to even be a part of it, and then to get the grant money to either participate in an event that's not, you know, within an hour drive of them, or even what takes to even get to that event in an hour drive for them, let alone learning to do it, right, and having access to it. So there's definitely need to be, you know, we need to help figure that out to create more opportunities, which Jason and I have talked about, some other project we're working on to create more, you know, opportunities for people. But definitely on the adaptive side, it's big for us. And Victor, you posted that in the group chat. Jason, can you
That's
download
a sweet
it?
photo.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know if I went away or not, but that's what I was looking at. Such a dope photo.
Yeah. Everybody click on the chat and you'll be able to see it. It's pretty awesome. A couple of things I was going to say, you know, one, I'll share, get you guys connected offline and get the information so that y'all will be able to work together. I think it's something that's really cool. And then also, before we get to Dave, because I know Dave, you got a question. One of the things that's unique about the marketing campaign that, you know, Jarryd and I have been working on putting together for it is it's truly going to be all about the information network, with the blade being just the result of what you can get through. But literally from the moment that I have an injury and there's an opportunity that I may have to get an amputation, or I am a parent of a child who either is having an amputation or has had one, all the way through to, you know, what sort of prosthetic do I get? How do I get to the actual blade? How can I afford it? How can I pay for it and everything? We're actually going to shoot a video series of short 2-minute clips that walks everyone through that, with Jarryd being able to explain it, because we're like, for the marketing of it, why not be something that they don't even have to buy something from us to get benefit from it, but letting them know that there's a pathway that's available because he went through it and had the right people to be able to narrate that for it. It's, you know, you can't put a price on that. That's something that can literally change the industry all the way across the board. So
1000%.
Dave, what you got?
Yo. So Jarryd, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story, man. Super cool, and so much respect and inspiration coming from my side. Curious on this topic, basically achieving and maintaining balance, because from what I hear from you, you have so much going on with this dual side of a professional life, of being this top level athlete, but also pushing this amazing project forward and being a businessman and playing so many roles here. And then on the flip side, also trying to balance somewhat of a personal and a social life in there as well. Like, how do you do that? How do you find balance? How do you maintain it? And so cool to hear that you're pushing forward. You're going for Paris 2024 and maybe beyond. And being, you know, I'm just a little bit older than you. I'm turning 33, and I'm trying to think about life after competing, and just want to pick your brain here on how you find that.
Totally, man. That's so good. I'll start at the beginning, and we'll hash through. I'll try to remember all kind of 3 sections, but if I need to ping you back for that, we'll keep rolling. But you know, the first thing, and this kind of idea and concept hit me a few years ago, when I really started kind of leaning into this concept of developing rival in the business. I had to completely flip how I looked at my life in comparison to like every other person. So most people who exercise, they wake up early at like 5:30 and they go work out, and then they go to their job, or they go to their job and on their lunch break they work out, or they go to their job and in the evening they work out. Well, my job is to work out. So I go and work out, and during the lunch or after between sessions, I've got 2 hours, I work. My working out is actually my job. Is actually me doing my business rather. And so or in the evenings, that extra 2 hours in the evenings where some people like go to the gym and crush a sweat and clear their mind. Building a business is kind of the way that I, escape, if you will. So our lives as professional athletes are exact opposite from that. And when I started seeing it like that, like people who want to be in shape, they make it a priority to get up early. They make it a priority to work it in their schedule. They make it a priority to do it at the end of the day, whatever it may be. So for me, I have to prioritize my business in that same sense and say, hey, you know what, for me, working out is my job and my business is my working out, if you will. So once I kind of made that connection and looked at it in that way, it allowed me to be really intentional with the time that I did spend working on the business, because I don't have 8 hours a day just to kind of meander and do that. Just like people when they go to the gym, like for you and I, like sometimes we go work out and we can take 3 hours because it's our job and I got anywhere to be and we're good. Sometimes we're on a schedule and we got 90 minutes and this is all we got to do. But when you have a job and this is your schedule and you only have X amount of free time and you want to work out, you've got 60 minutes. You do as much as you can in 60 minutes. And that's how I kind of approach my business right now, and that time. So that's kind of how I've been able to manage both. And it really it took kind of switching that perspective and relating it to a normal kind of schedule, because everyone else in the world somewhat lives on a normal schedule and we kind of just are in the background doing our own thing. And honestly, like being married and watching my wife do that, it was where I learned it. Like she got up at 5:30 in the morning, got and crushed a workout for an hour and it started her day. And I'm like, babe, you're more committed to your fitness than I am. And it's my job. And then I realized, like, as equally as committed she is to her fitness, I'm committed to Rival. And so as much as she works diligently to do that, and at night she'll do yoga for 20 minutes, whatever. And I'm like, at night, I need to jump on a call for 20 minutes. I gotta, like when you want to get it done, you find that margin time and schedule it in and be intentional about it. So I think that's kind of, if that kind of helps, that's kind of how I've processed it and then formulated. And then, for training wise, I get an off week every month, right? So I've a down week where I have like 2 days of nothing, and that's, man, I just go like ham skis on business. Like it's all I do. I bury myself for 8 to 10 hours that day and just go crazy. Also, I think having been married for the past 5 years and having a 2-year-old, and just that like you just don't have a choice to not have some structure in that. And so I think that's taught me to become a master of margin. And, I think that, any business owner, entrepreneur, person, for the most part, understands and operates margin time, but you can master your margin time, and because you can control it. And a lot of times we let our margin time control us. So we don't actually, we're not intentional to notice that it's there, and we kind of just do whatever when it comes up. But to become a master at margin is to actually own your margin time. So know when it's going to be there, be intentional with it when it's there, and then, continue with your next thing. And even if that's 5 minutes between something, finding what you can do in that 5 minutes. And even if it's like, hey, I just need to meditate for 5 minutes because I am on empty and I need to refuel before the rest of this day or I am shot. So yeah, I think I missed one of the things that you were asking. So I don't know if.
No, that was awesome. I love all of it.
Okay.
The structure and margin time is super cool. And I love being like a master of transitions and being efficient with that time, even if it is totally unplugging and unconnecting. So, you can be refreshed and ready to go for the next thing. You hit it all, man. The personal side sounds awesome. Married with a 2-year-old. Do you, not to be like nosy, like what do you do with your social life? Like where do you relax?
I forgot.
And yeah.
Yeah, so totally. So pretty kind of, I even have that structured in some way, shape, or form. So I mentor a bunch of college guys, college athletes in Georgia, about 10 to 20 of them. I do a Bible study every Tuesday night. And so that's like a 2-hour thing that I just love, and it gives me so much life. So that's one thing. Wednesday, my wife and I have like a married group of people that we get together with and just spend time and just kind of unplug away from the kids. So that's something that's super awesome. And then weekends, right now are pretty much free training. It's kind of hit or miss because of travel and competition. But weekends is like totally family time. You know, like this past weekend, like went out to a bike race. Jason was actually out there, went and chilled with some buddies for a few hours. You know, we got a 2-year-old. So it's like you got windows between nap times that you kind of like just try to capitalize on having some fun, just doing different things. So that's kind of how I incorporate it in family. And then for me personally, once a week, I play golf. That's like that's my thing. So I go and do that, whether it's driving range, whether it's walking 9, whether it's squeezing in 18 with a buddy. That's like the one thing that I really need for myself. There's so many life lessons that golf can teach you, and so many things that I learned from golf about track and field, and about, just a side tangent, like 100 meters, 48 steps, 10.5 seconds. There's never a perfect race, ever. There's never a perfect race, but there is managing the imperfections perfectly. And so a 100-meter race happens and a lot of things go wrong, and it's all about managing what you've given yourself in that race so that it can be as perfect as possible. And golf is the very same way. You hit a shot and maybe it doesn't go where you thought it was going to be. How am I going to manage that next shot based on that? So it's a very elongated version of what I have to do very, very quickly in my race. And I just love the principles that process brings into play.
Awesome. I love that. Never going to be perfect, but manage the imperfections perfectly. That's super cool. Thanks, man.
Totally, dude.
I love it too, because now I'm going to play golf once a week.
Come on.
Let's go, Vic.
Awesome. Anybody else?
In trouble.
All right.
Come on.
Cool.
I wanted to say real quick, Jarryd, you've given us so much in this conversation, and Jason, obviously, you'll wrap it up, but I'd like to share some of this. So we'll follow up with you guys if you want to share the recording with anyone, and just some of the wisdom that you imparted. So grateful for that. So thank you, Jarryd.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. You and I have been connected, and I wanted to make sure that we shared just a glimpse of everything that we've kind of gone through and stuff. I'm not an official, let's call it an official employee of Rival or anything, but just somebody that, as you all know, I latch on to a lot of things and believe in people's visions and believe in them. And it's something that Jarryd and I have been able to become very close in a short amount of time. And I look forward to seeing exactly where it's all going to go. And definitely we will have you back to revisit with us again and give us an update down the line, and just keep us going on what's happening with Rival as well as with your running career and everything. So thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. I can't wait to cut you your first check, man. You're getting the first check before me. That's for damn sure. I'm so grateful for your friendship and wisdom and leadership and mentorship. And this business exists because of you in one way, shape, or form. So I'm grateful for you, grateful for the introduction to amazing people. You have always been so gracious with connecting and sharing your network with me, and I'm so grateful for that, and have yet to meet anybody that I didn't like from your network. So you guys all are just amazing, and just again grateful for the opportunity. I can't believe we just spent 90 minutes together. It just flew by, but it was amazing, and grateful for again your willingness to shift the time last minute. I apologize again for that.
No, definitely. All right, we are good. Perry, back to you, and let's cut it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Jarryd's so appreciative. I'll share some of this stuff with our members. If anyone wants to reach out for a link to the recording or some of the wisdom that Jarryd shared with us, like I said, just let me know or let Jason know. We'll do that. And for our other members that aren't here today and everyone else from the Moonshot Collective, feel free to get in touch and we'll share this with you as well. Jarryd, again, thank you. Jason, amazing job co-hosting. Talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.